welcome to another episode of Chasing Rings. Back with my fellas, Big Dude and G. What's up, guys?
Hey, what's up?
Hey.
All right, let's jump into this. Wait, what? Wait, what? What do you have for us today, Big Dude?
Well, we're going to be going over the AFC West today. So to try to stay with that theme, I took a look at what might be unique amongst all the teams, maybe short term and not so long term. The Chiefs have done well, and they have been a Super Bowl favorite for years for accomplishing a number of things. But did you know that since Patrick Mahomes has been the starting quarterback for the Chiefs, they have not had one single 1,000-yard rusher in the backfield?
Wait, what?
That's why I'm glad they made the move that they made. If that being the case, they certainly need something to get back from that 6-11 record that they had.
Well, yeah, my wait what is really kind of about the history of the LA Chargers. Something I didn't know, and some of y'all may not know, was that the name itself came from the founder named them the Chargers to promote a credit card called a carte blanche card. And so the team was meant to kind of represent charging goods and services. So it was purely purchase this team, sell a credit card.
Wait.
So that's how the Chargers got their name, which I actually found that interesting.
Yeah, I didn't know that one. You went in the crates for that one for sure. My wait what is, I'm going to go with Alex Smith, sticking with the division here. So in 2014, Alex Smith threw 18 touchdown passes, which I know sounds crazy compared to how many they throw today. But did you know that not a single one of those touchdown passes was to a wide receiver?
Wait.
How do you do that?
Yeah, I never heard of that.
Zero. Every single touchdown went to a tight end and a running back. Let's jump into a little bit of news. Certainly, March Madness just wrapped up. And congratulations to the UCLA women and the Michigan men. Really, neither of those games was much of a contest, to be quite honest with you. I think the best two teams probably won in both sports, in my opinion, even though I know Connecticut was undefeated. I thought UCLA is the best team all year. They only had one loss. And Michigan definitely was dominant on the men's side. I think only losing once in the regular season and then the Big Ten championship. So no complaints on those on either end of those, excuse me. Do you guys have any comments about either of the tournaments? Just wrapping up your thoughts. And I know we could probably get into the Geno Dawn thing, but kind of over all of that at this point. But any comments about either tournament in general?
Well, I think I can say with the women's tournament, obviously we see at the end, I guess it's always the converse of things where the women's tournament didn't have much competition early, but later you kind of didn't know what was going to be what. And like I think I did say on the last show that we had, anytime they mention a record, when they mentioned that 54 straight win record, I wondered just how far UConn was going to go with that. And against Dawn Staley's team, it's a big thing, for her to win it. And like you said, I'm beyond everything else also, although we did find out just how far, people went. I understand viewership was very big on that tournament. I heard it's one of the highest viewerships in years. So, and then for the men, of course, I thought UConn had an outside chance, and I was actually rooting for UConn. Although I did pick Michigan, I thought UConn might be able to pull it out, and it would be a great story. I think it still was a great story, just how the tournament went. But and of course, as everybody being a transfer, you see how far college basketball is going. I mean, the whole starting five were all transfers with Michigan, and it's never happened. So I never thought about that, but that gives you an idea where we are today with college men and women's basketball. I know, Guru, you talked about Tennessee's team basically bailing out with the whole team. So you have those issues as well. But one resulted in the national championship, man. Just have to give it to him.
Yeah, great commentary on the transfers for sure. Any thoughts on your end, G, as we wrap up the college basketball season?
I will say that generally speaking, there was a time in my life when I didn't think coaching mattered as much as we give it credit for. But I think the way Dawn Staley, because I honestly didn't think that South Carolina was going to make it to the finals. But I think the way she coached down in the last two games just really showed you the psychological aspect of the game. And I will say with the UCLA women, when they came out, I think that, again, from the psychological side of the game, they collected themselves and they realized and they remember who they were all season. And that's who showed up in the finals. The men, oh God, I hate Michigan. But you know what? I'm more happy that the Fab Five got to be a part of it than the actual game itself. That's just because, you know, we're 80s, 90s players, so that felt good, right? And so I was happy for them. I think that the Big Ten this season in the the profitable revenue sports, they just really showed out. They showed out.
Yeah, the Big Ten got some serious bucks from that March Madness too, because the revenue breakdowns on March Madness is ridiculous. I mean, it's a very intricate formula, but you basically get a truckload of money each round that you advance to, and it's distributed among each of the schools. So even if you didn't make the tournament, you really reap the benefits of any Big Ten team advancing throughout that tournament. So I'll be interested to take a look at what they end up grossing after that. You bring up a really good point about the coaching aspect of it, G, and I'm with you. I think I really, especially watching the women play, had a really deep appreciation for coaching because you could see the schemes that they put in in both of those Final Four games and the championship game to stop what they needed to stop. I mean, it was masterful coaching, to be quite honest, if you really look back on it. So that's all. Agree with you on that. So another good season. I say this at the end of every March Madness season. I'm like, I gotta watch more college basketball early on, but you know, when you're overlapping with football, that's tough to get into that habit. But I'm gonna try to make it my mission to do so next year. But I hate to see the season end. Again, congratulations to both those teams. Michigan, UConn, I was fine either way. I'm a Big East person, but like you said, the Fab Five. Did either of you get to check out the Fab Five's alternative cast on Saturday night?
No.
So entertaining. It was so entertaining, man. And it was good to see the guys back together. It was a special broadcast. And I was hoping they would do it for the finals, but
I'm gonna have to pull that up.
Yeah,
YouTube or something.
Even if you can get some clips, but their interaction was pretty cool, them getting on each other and sharing some stuff about that time period that we didn't even know. So it was pretty cool. They dealt with a lot more than we even know. And of course, it was a different time period. We didn't have social media then. We didn't have cell phones and all that stuff. So a lot of stuff that they endured that they shared that night. And it was just cool to see them together. And you could tell they were so happy to be back in the fold again. So that was pretty cool. And sad news, and I don't really like to cover these types of things, but this guy was legendary to me, even though I did not like the Dodgers growing up. I was a Yankees fan. It was like the opposite. Davey Lopes, the infielder for the Dodgers, passed away today. He was an infielder in the 70s and 80s. And at that time, he was one of baseball's best base stealers. I used to hate when we played him in the World Series. If he got on base, you automatically you knew he was going, and it was a good chance he was getting that base. But he was a 4-time All-Star, spent a decade with the Dodgers, played in 4 World Series during that time, beating the Yankees in the 81 World Series. That was the Dave Winfield team, if you guys remember. He still holds the franchise record for most games played at second base with over 1,100 games. He also went on to manage the Milwaukee Brewers, and then he was also a bench coach for Baltimore, San Diego, Washington, Philly, which I didn't remember, big dude, and then he went back to LA. He actually won another World Series with Philly as a base runner coach and first base coach. And Lopes was 80 years old. So salute to another legend in the sports world. Certainly condolences go out to his family and friends. In the last news tidbit, we have a retirement in the league. Right tackle Caleb McGarry from the Atlanta Falcons decided to hang it up after 6 seasons there. He was out all last year with a knee injury. So I think he probably didn't recover too well and decided to hang it up. Probably a smart move on his behalf. They had just signed him to a 2-year contract too. He's supposed to be like the linchpin of their passing protection game. He was excellent against the run throughout his career. One of the reasons, if you think about Atlanta's history, they've always been pretty good on the run, and it was no different during his tenure. So good luck to him in the next chapter of his career. We are wrapping up our divisional draft analyses today, and we are going to start with the Denver Broncos. All right, so for Denver, and Denver was a team living on the edge all freaking year. It wasn't pretty, but they were effective. And you guys aren't going to believe this. 11 of their 14 wins were one-possession games. And almost every one of them, they were in trouble late and needed to have some late game heroics. And I know, Big Dude, you remember very well the Eagles game where they, came out of nowhere and, Philly stalled a little bit, helped them out, but certainly not a game that Denver had any business winning. Same thing against the Giants. That was one of the more memorable ones. But they always lived on the edge the entire year and basically had luck all the way through when you really think about it. My boys gave them a gift in the divisional round. But at the end of that game is when their luck ran out. As we know, that's when Bo Nix got injured on that next to last play. But even without Nix, the defense was holding it down, even in the AFC Championship. And then, unfortunately, Mother Nature kicked in, combined with Sean Payton making a horrible fourth down decision instead of taking the field goal. They probably would have won that game, even in the elements, had Payton taken the field goal. But, coulda, woulda, shoulda, right? So what had Super Bowl written all over it for them may have been a blown opportunity because everything fell their way. You don't win that many close games in the season like that. Everything in the playoffs fell for them, with the exception of the injury, certainly. But the AFC is going to be stronger next year and maybe stronger than it's been in a long time. So the big thing for Denver in the offseason is, will they be able to run it back in an extremely competitive AFC? But in their division, if you think about Kansas City should be better, the Chargers have an opportunity to fill in some gaps. And you have to think that Vegas will be a little bit better. I'm not saying that they'll be good enough to threaten for the division, but it shouldn't be a walkover game, which for Denver this past year, they barely beat the Raiders twice. So that division is going to be super competitive. In terms of Denver, if you think about when we did the NFC West, I believe it was, with the Rams and Seattle and all of those teams, Denver kind of is living like that. Don't need a whole lot. They ranked pretty well in the offensive categories. They were 10th in total offense, 11th in passing offense, 16th in the run. They could probably do a little bit better there. Their defense was amazing. They were the second-ranked defense, 7th against the pass, 2nd against the run. They led the league in sacks. So they're pretty solid on both sides of the ball. They made a great acquisition this offseason, getting Jalen Waddle from Miami. That is certainly going to help bolster their passing game, which should in turn impact their run in a positive manner. But they did lose a few key pieces. One on the defensive line, John Franklin Myers. They lost their safety, PJ Locke. And one of my favorite linebackers, Dre Greenlaw, actually went back to San Francisco. So if we look at Denver and looking at their draft and what they can do, they don't, another team that doesn't have a first round pick. When we started this off, they had a first round pick. So obviously they traded that pick to Miami to get Waddle. So now their first pick isn't until number 62. Where should Denver go? Not having a whole lot of needs right now. They do need to tighten up some things, but what does Denver look to do with a second round pick that's really not until the end of the second round? Big dude, I'll start with you.
Like I said, not much. I think that they ought to, even though they were able to get Waddle, I think it would be a good idea to still get probably another wideout, maybe not as high profile at 62. A receiver by the name of Zachariah Branch, who's out of Michigan, 5'9", 180, and runs a 4.35, and really good scores from the NFL folks, really good relative athletic scores, and some really good hands. And also, I would also look at while the defense is doing well, and they were able to sign Alex Singleton, and the loss of John Franklin Myers, Dante Corleone from Cincinnati for defensive interior would be two of the people that I would focus on. Like I said, first round pick. They can fill in the rest, I think, by picking up some younger offensive linemen. You always need them. But I would say a wideout, and I would say someone in the middle to bring in. You need a young stud in the middle. And they also say that Corleone, from everything else I read, is not a typical one technique D tackle. He's more of a three technique that can also play a one. So three technique between the guards and the tackle, to have somebody, push both of them as far as pass protection and breaking pass protection down goes. So Denver last year was all about creating opportunities, getting both of these players, especially with a player like Branch also, who I think is a return man, is also a person that could change the field. And, of course, using Waddle and using the distraction, it's good to have someone else that could stretch the field as well. So that's who I have for the Broncos, both of those individuals, and fill in the rest of the picks with the offensive line and maybe one other running back that, like a Nick Singleton, that may be available later.
All right. Thanks, big dude. What do you have for Denver, G?
Yeah, Denver, rich getting richer story.
Yep.
But I'm looking at some of their moves in free agency, and so it seems like they've really worked on the tight end. They've worked on their running back situation. But it seems like they could still use some work at linebacker, even though they did sign two more. But I would like to see them have any team have three and then have one that can regularly come off the bench. Then the inside defensive line, I would not be surprised if that's one of the places they focus on. And honestly, there's a lot of good interior defensive linemen coming out of college this year. So, it's really, and they're going to fall to them. So they're actually looking good. And that actually might be where their first pick actually goes, to that interior defensive lineman. And then, of course, you can offensive linemen, in my word, are premium, and you always need quality old linemen. But I think for them in their situation, it's really more on that defensive side, getting that interior defensive lineman. If they can get that locked down, that's going to really help the middle and the back end of the defense.
I'm going to also concentrate on the defensive side of the ball for them, primarily because of the free agency losses they had were primarily on that side of the ball. So right. I'm thinking, as you mentioned, G, linebacker first if they can. If Jacob Rodriguez is there, it's going to be shaky whether or not he's still there with the 62nd pick. You
love that. You love that dude.
I'm actually not a big. I think
you brought him up a couple of times, haven't you?
I love him. Hey.
I'm going to say, yeah, that big dude is more of a lover of Jacob Rodriguez.
Okay.
I have some questions about him. I'm more of a David Bailey guy for all the tech guys. But I think that's more of a big dude guy, Jacob Rodriguez. And I think he is good. I just don't know. Like, he's fluctuated, right? When we first started this, he was way up there. And I think it's fallen off a little bit. So that's why I'm thinking he might still be there based on what I'm hearing lately. If he's not there, I really like LT Overton, the defensive lineman from Alabama. He should be there. And also Zane Durant from Penn State, big dude, one of your guys. I think that they can't go wrong with either one of those if they can't get Jacob Rodriguez drafting that late with their first pick. Again, so those would be my selections, just because they're so late in the second round there. But I think Denver
lightning in the bottle, I bet you.
Yeah, and as you said, G, it's another story with Denver of the rich getting rich. I mean, I don't think they could really go wrong there. It's actually not a bad position to select in for a team that doesn't need a lot, because there is a lot of depth, especially as you said, G, in the interior positions. There's a lot of depth there, and everyone knows that if you can win up front. I mean, if you look at the last few teams to win the Super Bowl, if you can win up front, you are going to have a really high chance of hoisting the Lombardi at the end of the year. So Denver should be in good shape. Moving into Kansas City. Now, Kansas City is not probably as bad off as people want to think, especially with 2 picks in the first round. They can really leapfrog back up into contention fairly quickly if they're wise. Sometimes it's just not your year, man. And that's kind of how it felt for Kansas City. And they were due. I mean, they had so much success over the last several years, all of the trips to the Super Bowl, the numerous championships they've won. But they started to slowly lose their mojo the last few years. Like, felt like teams were catching up to them a little bit more in the AFC. So maybe surprised at the extent to which they fell off, but certainly not surprised that they're at the point that they are now. Interesting enough about their season, they were only above 500 for 1 week this year.
Oh my
And for
God.
a team with that history, that's crazy. So they just didn't have it this year. And they had some bad fortune. I mean, if you guys remember way back to their week 1 game, Travis Kelce plowed into Xavier Worthy on the play, dislocating his shoulder. So, he probably was never healthy after that. And then that just led up and culminated with Mahomes, tearing his knee up in week 15. So Kansas City never was healthy. You never sensed that they were going to be a threat all year. And, week after week, we would listen to that Kansas City bias. Like, oh, the Chiefs are going to get it together. Even though they're 4-7 right now, we think they weren't getting it together. They were never going to get it together. That was obvious, especially when you had Denver on the come up, Houston on the come up. Indianapolis was rolling at the time. Remember, 8-2 through 10 weeks. Like, who were they going to jump that draft? They would have had to win out, and they just didn't have the horses to win out. So it was the first time in 13 seasons under Andy Reid that KC had a losing record. So applaud Big Red on that. That's a hell of an accomplishment. And it's the first time that they've won fewer than 10 games since 2014. So, hey,
most franchises, they had some things that didn't fall their way.
Exactly. Most franchises could only be so lucky. So there's every reason to believe that 2025 was an aberration when it comes to the Chiefs. So, like I said a few minutes ago, they've been a little bit underwhelming the last few seasons, but still finding ways to win. But the health caught up to them this year. So the big thing for them is Patrick Mahomes coming back fully healthy. And when exactly does he come back? Because they acquired Justin Fields. And is Justin Fields going to be the answer to keep them in it if Patrick Mahomes is out for an extended period of time? I mean, let's say the first month of the season, you dig yourself a hole. If you're 0-4 in the NFL, we can look up the stats for that. That doesn't fare too well for you. Typically, it's that 0-2, you don't make the playoffs, but we've seen a few teams get past that. So offensively, pretty dreadful for a Chiefs team. And remember, Mahomes was healthy for 14 weeks, but this is still dreadful. 20th in total offense, 25th in rushing, 22nd in sacks allowed, 16th in passing. Defense surprisingly was not that bad. Wasn't so Spagnuolo was doing his thing still. They were 10th in total defense. They were 12th in passing defense, 9th against the run. So whenever you're top 10 in the category, that's good. But everything else after that, they couldn't get to the quarterback. They couldn't get any turnovers, ranked low in those categories. So it wasn't all lost. Some of their key acquisitions, they got a little bit of get back in the defensive backfield because they lost Jalen Watson and, of course, McDuffie. So they did replace them with a couple of people. but they also lost Leo Chenal in the middle, who I felt like his name got called a lot as a linebacker. He was in on a lot of plays, so that's a huge loss for them. And they also lost some people on the defensive line. So I'll start with you this time, G. What are your thoughts on what type of damage Kansas City could do with 2 picks, the 9th and the 29th? Those are 2 really good spots based on what they need. I don't think that they could go wrong either way with where they go. But what do you think about them?
They're gonna go. I think they should go wide receiver. If you're gonna be pulling the trigger that early, you have to go get a skilled guy. So go get your wide receiver, and then in your later pick, I think you can either go. I would probably go offensive line, even though they did build a lot of their offensive line, got some tight ends in free agency. So if not that, it would definitely be wide receiver and edge, or wide receiver and O line. This is kind of how I think they would go. I think you just because they got the running back down. I mean, I'm Kenneth Walker, third. I think he's going to do some good work there. You mentioned Justin Fields, and so when I think of Justin Fields' situation, have you ever had on some heavy boots and you walking around, and then when you take them off, you feel light? I think that's the situation that Justin Fields is going to find himself in. I mean, because the Jets is just a trash organization, man. I mean, you just can't be that bad that long if something's just not wrong. If something isn't right, man, something is just not right there. So he's going to go to an organization that will do right, are doing well, and that's going to impact the psychological aspect of his game. And so, whether he starts or whether he's coming off, if he's coming off the bench, fine. You can sit there and learn. You can protect your body. Just stay ready. If I was a coach and I'm coaching my bench quarterback, I always say, remember Tom Brady. Just be ready, and I think he'll be fine. So, to your point about the Chiefs just kind of having some situational stuff this season, I think that they're sitting pretty next season. You'll have, with this early pick, get your wide receiver, go get your edge, or go get your O lineman if you still need one. And I think they will be much better next season.
Yeah, I think that's a great point about Justin Fields. Everywhere he's been, the fate of the franchise has been on his shoulders, and a lot of pressure, and this will be the first time that he's going into a situation where the pressure is off. Like you said, whether he starts the season or, comes off the bench immediately, he is not going to be there to save a franchise and save a bad franchise at that. So this is a great opportunity for him. So I agree with you 100% on that. Big dude, what are your thoughts on the Chiefs?
Well, them losing both of those cornerbacks, and I think at safety they also lost Cook. It's hard, even though they got some people to play, you can never have enough corners. And I think that you have to have that corner that has the speed, the hips, and all those good things that y'all know about, y'all guys that play DB. The speed, the hips, being able to play the way they have to play, against taller receivers. I would look at a corner, pick 9. It looks like I would take Mansour Delane from LSU. I think he's going to be the person that we're going to hear about that's going to make a difference. Not that the other people won't, because they'll be there, but it looks like from what I saw, given an opportunity, this young man will be ready. Now, the tricky pick about 29 is you could also get an offensive guy, and I'll do the converse and the inverse of what G mentioned. I think you can still get a decent one at 29. The thing about it is, though, with that defense, it's got to really be there for Mahomes. I mean, people have to look at the fact that Mahomes made it through last season, but he made it through last season with an ACL injury. So even if he comes back, he's going to need the defense to be better than better, and someone else actually to pair with Chris Jones up front, because Chris Jones is good, and he's trying to be a leader, but he can't do what he used to do. So he's going to need somebody on the other side. And I know, Guru, I did kind of peek at a few things that you talked about. Christian Miller is from Georgia, I think would be something to look at that 29th pick. Christian Miller is starting to advance on these draft boards. And he's another person with a lot of athleticism there. And if Christian Miller is not there at 29, then I would go to another corner from Tennessee, Carlton Hood, who would be a solid other lockdown corner to give them the other corners that they can have. And, Isaiah Pacheco is gone, so they're lost with that, not having that extra hard runner. They need to figure out later how to pick up a hard runner. They don't have tremendous draft capital, but they have enough. And that's pretty much where I'm at. Justin Fields, we'll see if he's ready just in case. Let's hope he doesn't have the franchise on his back. But I would say, Mansour Delane corner, Christian Miller if he's available, Colton Hood if he's not. And that's what I have for Kansas City.
Yeah, I also have them replacing McDuffie, going cornerback with that first pick. I have Mansour Delane as well. He's moving way up charts, actually, in other outlets as well. So they're basically copying off of us. I think everybody's listening to our show and changing their draft orders. But I have them going Mansour Delane as well with that 29th pick. I have them going Akeem Messidor on as an edge, and if he's not available, Cassius Howell. I like both of them, and it was really tempting. Kansas City needs a wide receiver so bad. They really do. But with these defensive guys available, I personally think that the top of your draft, if you don't pick these defensive guys, you're not that you're going to get a bad defensive player, but there's a large there's a lot of talent at the top of this draft on defense, and I think you just can't pass it up if you got 2 picks in that first round. You can get a wide receiver later. They have the 40th pick in the second round. There'll be a good wide receiver there at the 40th because the wide receiver position is so deep. So that's my thoughts on Kansas City. Beef up that defense and keep it moving, get that defense. Keep that defense where it is. Take it up a notch because, again, I said they were 10th in total, I think. So they just need to fill in the pieces that they lost, and they'll be right back at the top there. And they were competitive anyways defensively. So just strengthen it because if you can play good defense, you're going to be in games regardless of what goes on the offensive end. So that's my thoughts there.
Score, bro.
So
you can be the great defense, but if you don't score,
you do have to score, but I think that when it comes down to it, I mean, if you look at the Super Bowl, even the Pats were putting up numbers on teams, and then when it counted the most, defense beats great offense in most sports. My theory, and I'm sticking to it. Let's go to Vegas.
Vegas got me perplexed.
Vegas is getting things are getting a little dicey out in Vegas, but anyways, nothing went right for those jokers last year. Well, actually, they beat New England week 1. Then nothing went right. Pete Carroll was one and done. And for him, he'd never coached a team that won fewer than 6 games in the season in his 18-year career. But Pete Carroll, to hire Pete Carroll, we knew immediately that the Raiders weren't going to do much. No disrespect to him, but it's just passed him by, and then they make it worse. Then they hire Chip Kelly as their offensive coordinator. And you know how the masses feel about Mr. Kelly. And he was the highest paid offensive coordinator last year.
Oh, yeah? Yeah.
So he got fired after week 12. Poor Geno Smith. Every time I saw him, he was running for his life out there. So, and there's no accident that he led the league in interceptions and certainly getting sacked. He was getting
he's crazy. He's a glutton for punishment. Because now he's going to the Jets.
Yep. So, and then Ashton Jonte didn't really have any room to run. Do you know that the Raiders averaged 77 yards rushing a game with a what I would call a higher level running back? So that goes to tell you how crappy their offensive line was. So gave up a bunch of sacks and couldn't run the ball. So what were you doing on the line? Were you doing anything up front? Right.
Oh God.
And then, of course, we had the Max Crosby saga at the end of the year where he was healthy enough to play in his eyes, felt like he wanted to be in there, but obviously he was hurt. And I don't think Vegas did anything wrong with shutting him down. I think Max just needed to get out of his feelings. Season was done. There was nothing to play for. You could have just hurt yourself further. So just another regular season in Vegas, Sin City, nothing changed. So when nothing works, you end up with the number one pick again. So here they are. Probably the worst offensive stats that I've seen for a team yet. They were last in total offense, 28th in passing, last in rushing, last in sacks allowed, next to last in interceptions thrown. So if you watch any Raiders game, watching them on offense was just it's the ugliest. It may be the ugliest thing I've ever seen in football the entire time I've been watching football. Defensively, they were competitive, but it's the same old story. When your offense is off the field quickly and turning the ball over after you got the ball back, I mean, after a certain point, the even good defenses are going to break and fold, and they still weren't horrible. They were 14th in total defense, 14th against the pass, 17th against the run, 19th in sacks. They weren't bad. They were not horrible.
Third.
Exactly. So that tells you a little bit about them. Some great acquisitions, really good acquisitions. They got Linderbaum from the Ravens, the center. They got Quay Walker, linebacker from Green Bay. They got Kwity Paye, the edge. Nakobe Dean from the Eagles, Jalen Naylor, a wide receiver, and one of my favorite Bills, Taron Johnson, at cornerback. So they have done very well in free agency. And, of course, they lost Geno Smith. So big dude, Vegas. They got that number one pick, and they got an early second-round pick as well there. Where do you see the Vegas Raiders going?
Oh, boy. Well, everybody should say everyone is, of course, counting on Fernando Mendoza going to the Raiders, of course, on the first pick with Kirk Cousins there. I guess the question will be, is he going to be, are they considering, and I keep hearing about these workouts that Fernando Mendoza's having, that he's apparently picking up on a system, not necessarily being under center and doing this RPO stuff that he does. And, it's a different offense than Cignetti's. And, of course, he has Kirk Cousins there to help move him forward and hopefully motivate him and model for him. And we'll see how that goes. And we'll see if they decide to start Kirk Cousins and then bring on Mendoza. But I think Mendoza is in there. I don't think there'll be any surprises. Also, I think that you need to take a look at, I know we won't go to every pick, but I will say going to pick 36, it's an issue for the Raiders because a lot happens in between pick 1 and pick 36. And this is where you probably want to take a look at what realistically is going to happen with Max Crosby. We've heard everything. Max Crosby was very nicely and not so nicely delivered back to Las Vegas, and he's got all these great revelations. But now these rumors are coming up about Max Crosby getting traded to the Eagles. A lot of big things just keep coming up, everything that I read.
Would you really want to deal with him? Would you really want to deal with him, big dude?
No, well, I'm just telling you just about whether they even about me. But I'm just telling you, this is the situation. I'm about to mention why you would take a next pick. So if they're not sure if they want to keep him, and no, not necessarily, G, but if they're not going to keep him or if there's a possibility, you have to, and I know they need O-line, but you still got to take a look at somebody else from Texas Tech who name is starting to come up on the draft boards is Lee Hunter, the defensive lineman. That's also there as well. I think taking a look at him at 36 is fair. And if Lee Hunter isn't there, or if they decide that Max Crosby's going to stay, then I'm looking at the offensive tackle or the guard, I should say, offensive guard from Oregon, Emmanuel Pregnon. I think he will end up being in the 30s. There was some talk about him being in the 20s, but just about he's rounded out in the 30s. And, of course, they have the tight end Michael Myers that's back, and it's an awesome player. They're going to probably need to pick up, I would say, somewhere in that part, another toy they can play with, meaning another wideout that can stretch the field. Will be able to do more to help out, help their running back be more valuable in what that running back does to open up the field for the running back. So they're not going to be crowding 8 in the box and killing that poor little guy. So that's about what I have for the Raiders. You know, they got some people that are back. They got some help on O-line. I'm going to say they need to look at an athletic D lineman like Max Crosby, who I'm going to pick out like Lee Hunter was on an athletic defense like Texas Tech, and Emmanuel Pregnon. Those would be the main players. One other wideout, if it happens to them later. The draft capital is actually kind of spicy. So they should be able to find someone. And that's what I have for the Raiders.
Before you go, G, I need to find out from both of y'all, what's the problem with Max? What did Max Crosby do to anybody?
Go ahead, G. You jumped.
Neither of you see, you both were kind of like, who wants to deal with him? I'm curious as to what.
Like from what I guess from the reports I'm seeing, he seems like that he wants to go, or does he want to stay?
Mm-hmm.
He's like, make up your mind. Unless I'm interpreting it wrong. Am I interpreting it wrong, big dude?
No, I'm not. Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't think that you are, but. Anyway, let me just make it more clear. Still on having him there would be awesome. But when you start talking about draft capital plus number 3, Smith Jr., Nolan Smith Jr. They were talking about a number 1 and number 3 and Nolan Smith Jr. for him. I just wasn't sure whether the Eagles ought to go that far. I would say the draft capital, and he's 28 years old, which is a good age. And if we're going to win now, we just have to ask ourselves where he's going to fit in that defense. Now, my issue with Crosby is, as good as he is, he came from a team that wasn't very good, which is good because he makes plays and he gets stats. The other issue I have with a player like that is, as good as he is and whatever he can do, is how will he fit in with the rest of the defense? How will he play with Jalen Carter and all the rest of those guys? Will that be a good fit for both of them? If you look at it, no one will be able to keep up on this on the right side of the line if you just look at flat-out ability. But how they play that defense and whether he's going to be disciplined enough not to just try to do anything as a hero type of guy, because I always respected him. And he can do things and people can't really touch him and can't block him. The continuity of the Eagles defense, I think, is at stake now, So if they bring him in, that'll be the question. Would he sacrifice some of the things that he's been able to be successful at and stats and all those other types of things for a good Super Bowl run? Not that that's going to necessarily mean it because he's coming there. Will certainly be in good shape, or do you take the player that's hungry and is going to play disciplined and might actually do not quite as good, but somewhere near there, So those are some of my concerns. No, as a player, and I think as a locker room guy, he would be great. But once you start playing, and you've been, and one thing about the Raiders is they don't seem like they tell him anything. They like him, but it seems like that he can freelance and he has a lot of freedom to do things. I know on Vic Fangio's defense, there is that time to do that. But one mistake, on the outside leaves a gap for somebody to run through or leaves an athletic quarterback to light you up with. So those are my things. And like I said, that's why I said not necessarily, because it's more about the continuity of the Eagles defense paying him, putting out that money, and he also got that contract. And then can they sign Jalen Carter? You know, what impact is that about them signing Jalen Carter? Because I would rather have Jalen Carter. Now that's the truth.
Yeah, I was under the impression.
I must have missed something. I must have missed something. I definitely missed something.
He had previously expressed, over the season frustrations, which I can understand from his perspective. But when you start making it those frustrations, it creates issues with the front office. So apparently there's tension between him and the front office. He was ready to head off.
Yeah.
But then with the injury and the surgery to his knee, deal fell through. So now he's back. And so I guess my whole thinking is one, more organizationally. So if he went to Philly, I'm thinking if I'm Philly organization, do I want someone who, if things are starting to go bad, of course, you want them to be able to talk, but they're going to talk in such a way that it's going to mess up the locker room. And that's kind of the impression I'm getting in Las Vegas. So that's the impression I'm getting. And then now, now he's forced to come back. But, Las Vegas, I honestly think they're doing the right thing of really trying to give him what he wants. And it seems he doesn't want to be in Las Vegas. And so they're trying. But I was just thinking from Philly or any other team's perspective, do you want to first organizationally want to deal with that possibility of upsetting, the locker room if things aren't going his way? And then, of course, the medical issue with the knee. I mean, meniscus tears. I mean, that's that little cartilage in between your bones. I mean, that's a tough one to come back from because there's not much blood going to it. So that's a tough one to come back from.
Well, I was going to move off of it, but I'm still trying to when did Max Crosby complain before the end of last season? When have y'all heard him complain? Because I've never have.
Well,
I've never heard that he was just let me finish. Oh, okay. He was always a good teammate from everything I heard. He played hard. He did everything he could on a terrible team. And it seemed to me, and again, I don't have all the information. I wasn't in the locker room with them at the end of the year. That the first time I've seen anything come up with him of this nature is him really just wanting to be on the field because he's a team guy, and he didn't like the fact that they basically pulled him at the end of the season. And the second piece of it, and no shade to the Eagles organization, but going in and upsetting the apple cart, who do y'all think is leaking all this stuff about Jalen Hurts? It's got to be players, because it's certainly management would be a fool to do that, because if management is leaking information about Hurts, you're not going to get anything for him. You're diminishing his value. So you'd be stupid to do that. So there's something already going on in the Eagles locker room. And I don't think that Max Crosby is going to do anything to hurt it. But that's just my opinion. I'm trying to understand where you guys, the media's done a hell of a job. If you guys, who I respect immensely, view Max Crosby that way, because I've never viewed Max Crosby as a trouble, that he would negatively impact the team culture, that he wouldn't play within the framework of the game. Now, I do agree with you, big dude, in terms of I'm not giving up a bunch of young studs for him. I'm not doing all that. But for him coming into it, I think any team that he came into will only be better, in my opinion, both the culture and certainly on the field.
Mm-hmm. See, and I agree with you, but what I'm saying is, if you're the best player, and this happens with offensive linemen too, if you're the best player on that line, you're either a leader and you help everybody. And what I'm saying is I don't know. That's why I'm saying I want to make sure you understand. I don't know if there is a view that I have of him necessarily. What I'm saying is sometimes when you come from a bad team and you're able to do what you want to do, and I don't know that he does this, because G just happened to say, why him? Why you? So while I was saying it, that was what I was just really talking about, it really from a strategy standpoint. And the stuff with Hurts is a whole nother story, like I said, and I'm sure the players and some other folks that aren't with the organization anymore, I'll bet you, are the ones that are doing it. So you get half and half. It's no secret. And Crosby, and I think what G's talking about is, after all those things that happened that you mentioned, he did go to management. He asked them for a trade, which there's nothing wrong with it, because they're just a terrible team. So who wants to play for a loser? Hardly nobody. So by the same token, though, he has to understand that him going there, he'll get the money, but everything else isn't going to fall on his lap like it's the Las Vegas Raiders. That's all I'm saying. It's a whole different situation. So when he's the one that said when he went to Baltimore that he knew something was wrong, he didn't feel like he belonged, and this was before all this other stuff happened. So to me, it's more about whether he really wanted to leave the Raiders, because if you really don't want to leave the Raiders and you would rather be with them, then I'm okay with you saying that's what I'm saying. So, and I was just talking about from a standpoint, not about him, that I've watched his playing like that. What I'm saying is sometimes when people change teams, they expect, that's why some people don't do as well when they go to other teams. And like I said, and G brought up the injury that is not a secret. And there's a lot of people that come to places hurt and they don't pass physicals, and there is no standard to pass physicals. And so there can always be an argument. I'm even beyond that, because if it's win now and he can play with Jalen Carter and we can pay Jalen Carter, then we can talk. But to give up a first and I'm just saying that was a rumor. To give up a first and a third round, a first and a third round pick and Nolan Smith Jr., I'm not so sure about that.
Yeah, I agree with that for you guys. I definitely agree with you about giving that up. Now, another team, I might say do it, but you guys don't need to give up a first and third round. You don't need to give up a first round anything for a defensive guy because you're already loaded. But I guess I'll come off it after this. Trey Hendrickson has been bitching for the last 2 years.
Yeah.
And I never heard Crosby until really the end of the year thing that he did. He got in his feelings probably because he wanted to play. That's the only time I've heard anything. Maybe he was. But Trey Hendrickson bitched for 2 years, and everybody seems to be great about him joining the team. I'd be a little bit worried about him coming into my culture because, you basically griping for 2 years about something that wasn't going to happen. Just play. Just play at that point because Cincinnati wasn't going to come off of you. So either play or sit out, as far as I'm concerned. I'm just making a comparison. It seems like it almost seems like Max Crosby got the dookie end of this stick.
He did.
Because if that's the impression that people now have, of him, it's like his reputation got harmed. And I guess I'm trying to understand how did his reputation get harmed?
Yeah, I think in terms of him complaining, it was more about the organization's leadership. He wasn't openly complaining about his teammates and the coaches.
I get that.
So, so when you start going after the leaders, I don't know why another leader, especially if they're not on a contender, would want to deal with that. But now
I think because it's the Raiders. I don't think that's his makeup. It was the Raiders leadership. I don't think he comes in to any leadership.
Right. So if he went to Jets, he'd probably still claim about he still complain about organizational leadership, which I would understand. And in terms of his play, from what I'm reading, it's less. Yes, the injury thing is there, but it's more like a lot of folk are more frustrated at how Baltimore Ravens played it. And they felt that they kind of that they slow played him, and it was just kind of a bad faith thing, and it's really blown. It could have blown the injury up further than it was. I mean, I don't know I know he had surgery, but I don't know exactly what part of the meniscus. I don't know exactly what surgery fixed. I don't know what the prognosis is, so I don't want anybody listening to this think I know that. But it seems like some of the people are saying that injury could be overblown. You know what I mean? So that's kind of why I said it. It's just like, okay, if you're the ownership, do you want to deal with that? If you it's a knee issue, meniscus is not a light, unserious issue. Do you want to deal with that? But I guess he can pass tests. So that's where I was coming from.
Okay, got you. Because I agree with you on the medical. I don't want damaged goods, and I agree with you, big dude, on the picks. I ain't giving up. I ain't giving up my young cats for that, and that's a double whammy. I'm not giving up my young cats on a team that's already good for a damaged. It's a damaged product here. I got a damaged product. I'm going to give up a first round pick for. So I'm in agreement. I guess I was looking at it from more him impacting the culture. I didn't know where that piece. Because I had never heard of him like messing up a culture, you know.
Right.
And you may be right, could be right, but I just haven't seen it. So I guess I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt with that. And I'm probably a little biased because I really like him too. So that's why I'm kind of standing up for Max a little bit.
Well, you know, point though, don't you want your players to be vocal? Don't you want them to have a passion and want to be better?
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. I'm okay with it. And remember, I'm reacting to a discussion that the discussion keeps coming up about the trade. So my question is, are they real? Is this why they have not? The bigger question I had is does this mean they're not extending Jalen Carter? Which to be honest with you, that's the biggest thing I was concerned about. Now I'll take Max Crosby, but not without Jalen Carter. No, I don't want. And then give that up and then not extend. To me, that just didn't make any sense.
Yeah, you guys weren't going to do that. And the Eagles I feel like the Eagles are involved in every trade rumor there is. And I'm going to believe about 0.0001% of it. I'm not, especially when it comes to your defensive players.
Super Bowl this past season.
Say it again.
I said that's because they stacked and they really should have won the Super Bowl.
But I'm saying from the perspective of why would when I look at these rumors, like other than AJ Brown, I'm like, when they're talking about trading Carter, I'm like, yeah, okay, whatever. What's on TV? Where's the remote? I'm not entertaining. I'm not entertaining. That'd be like, oh, the Eagles are gonna shop Q Mitchell for. No, they're not. No, they're not. So stop it. You know, the only thing that my ears are gonna perk up to is Hurts and AJ Brown. All that other nonsense, the Eagles aren't. And if it was, I trust Howie. So
right.
You know what I'm saying? So much different. Another franchise with first world problems. I don't want to hear nothing from you, big dude. Be back in the NFC Championship game again this year. I don't want to hear nothing from you.
You know it. They just had a down year.
Exactly, and it wasn't even a down year. That's the crazy thing about it.
They underperformed.
Exactly. For champions, it was a down year.
Right.
Yeah, he underperformed.
Exactly. That's it. So yeah. Anyways, it's good to have those discussions every once in a while.
That was good discussion. That was real good. I didn't know it was going to evoke so much passion. Okay, we'll take it.
Yeah, man. I love me some Max Crosby. If y'all can't tell, I couldn't let that go. I wasn't going to let that go.
He's a heck of a guy. He's a guy I would love to play with. And that's not just behind what you said. The whole point is we know it's a business, and everybody, as I tell my wife, why are they letting people go? I said, because everybody can't have the money, hon. Everybody can't have it.
And the Raiders need players.
The broader game actually pretty good, I think.
Yeah, the Raiders need players, man. I mean, how you get players? If you can get rid of one of your great guys, you can get multiple things back, and sometimes it's just worth it, you know.
Honestly, that's what I was thinking. I'd be like, yo, man, can I get some like really high draft picks for this dude?
I think his injury probably screwed them.
Oh God, yeah, definitely.
You know what I'm saying? Because it's a much different conversation now. And now Baltimore is like, didn't pass the physical. So now teams are like, I'm good. I'm good.
He'll have to play another year in Vegas.
Exactly.
He can make it the entire season. If he can make it the entire season, he'll probably get even more bank for the 2028 season than for the 27.
Yep.
So if I was him, man, just go in, do what you do. You know, make sure your medical team is on point and do what you do. You'll be okay for 1 year in Vegas, and then you can bounce out. Sign 1 year contract.
Yeah, he could have a really big offseason next year if he does his thing this year. You're absolutely right about that. All right, G. Now I forgot, man. We got to give G a chance. I mean, we all think Mendoza, but you got anything different for the first round and maybe what the Raiders need to do after that?
I think
pick,
this is
G?
this is why I said they perplex me, because I know they absolutely 120% need a QB. Part of me just still have questions about this quarterback draft. And I'm just like, do you roll the dice and just go fill up your wide receiver pool and get your offensive line and shoot for 2027 and just try to get somebody in who can be serviceable at quarterback, and hopefully things pan out for you. You'll probably still have a decent high pick in next year's draft when there's going to be a good number of quality QBs coming out. So I don't know. They have it tough, in my opinion. And But here's what I will say: what I think about Mendoza. I think when I think about him and his play, I honestly think about oh Jesus Christ, Joe Flacco when he first came out of Delaware. That's who he puts me in the mind of. Just a big dude. He's straight up. But because of that, he can be 3 steps behind. He can start at 5 steps behind the center. He's tall enough. He got the arm that's well enough. He's accurate enough that he could just pull a Joe Flacco or even a Big Ben, out of his pocket. He's a pretty big dude. So it could actually end up being a good blessing for Vegas if they do go for him, but they just have to understand the type of offensive line and the type of skill guys they're going to have around him to make it work. Because think about who Big Ben had around him. Think about who Flacco had around him in Baltimore. So if that's what you're building for, I think Mendoza can actually be good. But they definitely have to fill out that wide receiver. That wide receiver room needs serious help. The offensive line needs serious help. They have to go offense.
So I'm getting you're not sold on Mendoza with the first pick.
No, I'm not from a big picture perspective, but from a pure need perspective, and you gotta have somebody, because I think his ceiling is probably pretty high. If you think you can build that team around him, knowing that you got somebody who's not extremely mobile, if you're gonna build that, then fine. But if you don't think you can build that line and you can have you got your downhill runner right there. But if you can't build that line and give him some wide receivers that can stretch the field, and then have some of those that can undercut, can run between the DBs and the linebackers, and 10, 7, 8, 10 yards and get going. If you're not going to build that around him, you're going to just crush him. It'd be like Flacco in Cincinnati.
So I'm with you. I don't know if they should pick Mendoza here. And what I'm thinking is they might be able to game some other teams, and I would consider trading the pick and sliding down just a little bit. And I'd leave that up to the experts to figure out where they need to slide to get what I'm going to recommend. But I think that they should try to slide down, maybe get Arvell Reese or Bailey. I'm really thinking Bailey to bring it, if you can get another pass rusher in there with Max Crosby, especially in the division that they play in, to get some pressure on those quarterbacks. That's what I'm thinking. But also I'm thinking that too, because I'm not the biggest Kirk Cousins fan, but I'm thinking about what you also said, G. Can't Kirk Cousins get you through a year?
Yeah,
you know what
right.
I'm saying? If he doesn't get hurt, it can't be worse than it has been. He could at least get you. He's got to be better than Geno still, right? And I like Geno, but got to get you 8 wins, right?
Well, yeah.
And do you want that? Because I'm thinking I want that pick. I want to draft high again next year. Now it's a deeper quarterback draft, but I still want to be at the top of it.
Exactly.
So do I purposely almost pseudo sabotage myself and say, hey, we're going to trade this pick, roll with Kirk Cousins, hoping Kirko flames out, and we end up there again in those top picks. Because I'm just not being sold. Even at Indiana, I was not completely sold on Mendoza. I mean, I bought into the hype. They end up winning it. But I'm not going to sit here and say when I watch those games, I'm like, oh, my God, this is a transcendent quarterback here. I like his size. I like his football IQ. And maybe because he's getting lumped in with this, he's part of this quarterback draft. Maybe that's why he's diminished so much in our eyes, because all of these quarterbacks, none of us really want any of these quarterbacks. So is that kind of rubbing off? Some of it's getting on Mendoza. Like, it's not his fault he's in a crappy draft, right? So I don't know how much of it's that, but I'm not 100% comfortable with this. And when you're drafting a quarterback first, usually you're sure. There's no doubt about it. And I'm just hearing too much. I'm hearing too much that's lining up with what my feeling was about him.
Yeah. I mean,
I'm hearing that he's not even the best quarterback in the draft. Based on the measurables and the assessments, they're saying he is not the best quarterback in the draft.
And it's hard to tell because he didn't work out at the combine. He was there, but he sure came in with the cape. See, the problem with Mendoza is he came in with the cape on. See, if you're Batman, you just can't come in with the cape on, man. You got to deliver. You can't come in and say, I'm Batman. No,
That's
man.
a mic drop. That's a mic drop, big dude. Came in with the cape on.
Yeah. You're either NFL ready or you aren't.
His saving grace to me is that wherever he has played, you've seen him grow, which means that he's coachable. He definitely has a good mental feel for the game, and that to me that says a lot. And that's why I could actually see them going for it. But like I said, they're not going to beef up that line and give him those targets, man. He's going to be getting slammed.
And I hope he makes it, man. With everything in me, I want this kid to be a star because everything else about him is star. I see the commercials. I see it all. The personality is off the charts.
Yeah,
but I didn't give a damn that Ken Stabler's personality was crap. Kenny was gonna ball out, and that's probably too bad of a reference for our younger crowd, but y'all know what I mean. I like my quarterbacks with a little bit of edge on them, I suppose.
Well, he's not that. He's a shucks guy.
Yeah, and that's cool. That's cool.
Peyton Manning. Oh, shucks.
Yeah, but the thing about it is Peyton had that dog in him that we didn't realize till later on, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, he had it rough when he first started.
So,
man, had it rough.
So, man, I am so torn, and I just feel, I don't know, I just feel like the Raiders can do something with this and get more of a known. Like this David Bailey kid, unless something crazy happens to him, I think it's a sure shot. I think Arvell Reese is a sure shot. I can't say that I know Fernando Mendoza is a sure shot. And not even just because of him, it's because of where he would go. I mean, you could be ruined, and you could be ruined your first year or two in the NFL at that position. You could be just killed.
Right.
So I'm not sure. I can't definitively. This is the first one we've done where I can't definitively. I'm not going to rest on this first pick here. I don't think it should be him, no.
It's tough, man.
And I don't think it should be another quarterback in place of him. I don't think any of these quarterbacks should be drafted in the first round. None of them.
It's weird. It almost seems like that this is the year. See, and this is what I mean about people going to other teams and all. Sometimes people, they look at what they need, but then is it the year of the person or is it the right quarterback? So he did everything right. He got the endorsements. He's a national championship quarterback. He's He's known as what is it, the cardiac kid and everything else. You know, and it sounds like everybody's not saying he's the best either. That he is willing to learn. He has potential. He's developing. He's doing all those other types of things, and the timing seems paramount to take.
I'm gonna give y'all another example. It's not a perfect example, but it's a hype machine example. Jamarcus Russell, and it's not ironic that it's the same damn team drafting.
Oh my goodness!
The hype behind him coming in was like, oh my God, we haven't seen anything like this, and
yeah, man. Yeah,
and I know it's a little bit different because of his physicality, his physical skills were the big difference. Nobody was, he wasn't being compared on those other intangibles. But I'm just thinking, people were so enamored with his physicality that it was a no-brainer. And if you think about it, if you remember him in college, I mean, LSU was just a good team. I mean, he wasn't that dominant. I mean, he just was big. He was bigger than everybody else. He was bigger than the rest of the kids on the field.
He had the package. He had the best resume.
Yep. So I don't know, man. I hope it works out but I'd be scared to death if I'm Las Vegas right now on what to do. The one good thing for them is they have Brady in that room, and Brady's like the football version of Bird to me. Like, I hated him when they played, but I respected the hell out of him after the fact. And we know that Tom Brady knows football, and I don't think he's gonna, if they're giving him the voice that I would expect that he has, given the position he has within the organization, he won't let them make a move that he's not 100% confident in. So that's my thoughts on that. But I traded, and maybe just to wrap mine up, down to either 3 or 4, because I'm looking at what those teams need. The Jets will probably fall for that crap and pick Mendoza if they jumped up to the first pick. So I definitely would probably approach them first, because they'll jump all over it like dummies and be set back for 5 more years. And Arizona, I don't think Arizona will fall for the quarterback. Oh, and the other thing is possibly Jeremiah Love, which I know might seem a little odd. But again, I'm thinking guys that can help make your franchise better, because the Raiders need so much. You can't miss on this first pick. You cannot miss.
Hey, but here's the thing about that one, though. That's a 1-2 punch for your butt right there.
Exactly. And with Kirk Cousins, now this changes the formula. If Kirk Cousins has Jeremiah Love and Ashton and Genty in the backfield, now I don't really need to do a whole lot. Just don't mess up the game. But we know Kirk Cousins is going to mess up the game at some point. But
yeah, give him time.
Give him time. 3rd and 8, he going to throw you one. He going to throw you one.
Yeah, with all the physical gifts, boy, Lord.
So I don't know. The Raiders are very intriguing. And you would think that this would have been the easiest one that we've done, but I actually probably was Tennessee. I thought was difficult. This has probably been the most difficult.
You know what made it the most difficult for me? It's because the quarterback, you absolutely have to have a good quarterback to win, And the reality is they just need too much.
Yeah.
They just need too much.
And if you draft him first, look at the quarterbacks in that division. If you draft him first, when is he going to be able to beat Herbert, Mahomes, and Knicks? And I'm not a big Knicks guy, but still, he does enough, and he's got that about him, right?
He definitely does.
When's he gonna beat them? And I think maybe that's where you look first when you're a team in this position, because you got to get out of your division first, right? Forget visions of grandeur after that. How can I win my division?
Right.
Fernando Mendoza ain't winning that division in the next 5 years, in my opinion.
And this, for me, is not so much of a knock on him.
Mm-hmm.
It probably sounds like it, but that's really
it does. It sounds. I just realized what I said sounded horrible.
It definitely sounds like it. I'm really more concerned. I just think that he's not one of these cats that you can plug and play him. I think you have to have a certain type of supporting cast around him to make it work. And Vegas has so many needs, man. Even in free agency, it's not like they've gone crazy yet. So I don't know. I think I guess my apprehension is probably more fear for him than
Yeah.
anything
And
else. Is he gonna
let's
wait
look
his
at worst
get?
games. Let's look at his worst games. When Penn State got to him, Miami was getting to him, Ohio State was getting to him. How did he handle those games? Because Penn State was getting to him right up until the last miraculous conversion. So he never really dug out of it. They got lucky, right? I mean, when we agreed that they got a little lucky, a dude made a lifetime play, right?
Yep.
Ohio State,
I got
your
one more.
quarterback probably prevented you from winning the Big Ten championship.
Well, then we also had Ryan Day calling. Everybody know he's horrible.
Because your defense held them. I mean, what was it, 13-10 or something like that?
Something like
So your defense did its job, and Miami had them on the ropes.
But then, Miami can Miami.
Yeah, so I'm just thinking about when there were adverse times, what was his impact on getting him out of it? They got a lucky play in State College. That third down play is going to be his Heisman, the fourth down play in the championship game is his like post Heisman highlight, right? But Miami had that ass and they were on it all night. So now I'm thinking NFL where it speeds up.
And you got the Seahawks.
Exactly. I just didn't like how he looked in those situations. And honestly, Miami missed tackles on that play. Yeah, and lost some lane integrity on that scramble. If you look at that play again, lost lane integrity and missed arm tackling, right? And they probably retired.
That's what I was getting ready to say. If you remember, particularly down the stretch, their tackling was trash.
Yep.
They were in good body position, but the arm tackling, the trying to grab and hand tackle, it was just readily apparent that I don't know if they were just out of gas or they were just so anxious and hyped up that they just lost their fundamentals. Something happened.
Yeah, so I definitely didn't expect the Raiders to warrant this much discussion. But
they just had me perplexed.
Yeah, they're the only team that this whole analysis that I did not have a player written down for. I just have a number one. I just have a number one, but no player.
Players, they need them.
Yep. Like if you look at the top prospects, they could draft any one of them, and it'd be great.
Right.
So I don't know, man. I just gonna be the only one where I was like, I don't know. I think I trade the pick. That's my final.
That's not a bad idea, man.
But all right, let's wrap it up with the Los Angeles Chargers, which I've always liked the Chargers, like a Kellen Winslow, Dan Fouts type of era dude, and they just always come up short. And they're one of those franchises, if they won a Super Bowl, I would be so ecstatic for them. But like every Los Angeles Chargers season, San Diego Chargers, wherever they've been.
I got mad at them because they left San Diego.
Yeah, I didn't like that. I don't like two teams in a city like that, and where it's not traditionally, it's different for Cubs, White Sox, but football, I ain't with that. Anyways, they had hope all the way up until the end, really, and they started off hot. Remember, they were the opening game. They did Kansas City dirt, so we're like, okay, they might be real this year. But back to reality in week 4 after sweeping your division in the first 3 weeks. Joe Alt got hurt. That was huge. Their line, that was the beginning of the end because their line ended up being banged up all year. Say that again.
Yeah, they had a boatload of injuries, right?
Yes. Yep. A lot of line injuries. Alt got hurt in week 4, and that was just the first of his 2 ankle injuries, and he really couldn't come back. And that was kind of the beginning of the collapse for their offensive line. They were still able to get to 11-6, which tells you really a lot about some of the talent on their team, but their defense was really good. But believe this or not, they had a worse point differential than the Chiefs. So they were 11-6. Chiefs were 6-11, and they had a worse point differential, which is unheard of. In my opinion, they reached the postseason DOA because did any of us really think that they were going to go to Foxborough and win the first game? I mean, I hoped.
I didn't.
As a New England hater, I hoped like hell, but I knew that was going to be just the Chargers charging, as you said, G. The Chargers charging, right? And I love Justin Herbert too, so that's why I root for them. But anyways, that wild card game was just pathetic. And their defense did everything it did because that was the beginning of turning over Drake May. That was the beginning of the turnover fiasco that defined his playoffs. They did a good job of doing that, but the offense couldn't do anything. So they were the disaster in the offseason. So Harbaugh has brought in Mike McDaniels, which is interesting because it's the first time he's really gone outside of his coaching tree to hire one of his assistants. So that'll be interesting. Maybe that puts him over the top. But I guess for next season, I think the pressure's on Harbaugh because he was brought in to save the franchise, and we waiting to be saved, Jimmy. We waiting to be saved. Because you're wasting, there's a lot of focus on, Baltimore wasting a generational talent with Lamar, my boys wasting Josh. Nobody's talking about Justin Herbert being wasted because to me, Herbert's that dude, and he's being wasted. Offensively, pretty good. 12 total, 18th in passing. Another team that never has any wide receivers for whatever reason. They were 12th in rushing. So they were pretty good there. Defense was way better than I thought as we prepped for this. 5th total defense. They were 5th against the pass, 8th against the run, 10th in sacks, 4th in interceptions. So they did some work on that defense. So for them, they had some key losses. They lost Mekhi Becton, which has he landed anywhere? Does anybody see? Is Mekhi? That's interesting.
Not that I see anything.
No,
okay, that's interesting.
He's asking the Eagles to come back, and they actually haven't budged.
That's weird to me that he's so something's up with that. Something's got to be going on here. I haven't heard that he is.
Because he had a fabulous year, the Super Bowl year. I mean, he had never played guard in the NFL and ends up winning the chip. And he got the contract, he won it, and thought it was going to be all good. And then the Chargers said, well, you can have your guy back. Yeah, he don't really do nothing for us.
Yeah, I would love to know a little bit more about why they released him. That's weird to me. They also lost a guard and a center on their old line. They lost tight end Will Dissly, which that they'll be fine there. But they had some good pickups. I like Dalvin Tomlinson, the defensive tackle, so that'll help with their defense even more. Denzel Perryman at linebacker will help. They got an outside linebacker, Odafe Owa, I think I'm saying his name right. So they got some more defensive pieces, and they got a couple of offensive linemen. So the Chargers, I don't think are too far off. I just think that they're the Chargers, and just stuff happens to them. And they do stuff to themselves, I guess. I don't know, but it just never – they're in that Buffalo realm, like something happens to them. Never quite get to where they should be. So, big dude, wrapping up with our last team here, where do you think the Chargers should go with the 22nd pick?
Well, it doesn't mention anything about O-line per se, but I still think that they ought to look at it. You mentioned Joe Alt, from what I'm understanding, and I'm reading that Joe Alt, they're still not sure how ready Joe Alt will be for the season. So I think that if that's the case, you have to think about at pick 22, somebody like and you said that they lost a guard. Somebody can play guard and tackle. Spencer Fano from Utah is a good pick, I think, at 22. That especially if you can play both. And they said he even played a little center at the combine, which is helpful. That he has all those skills and those things. And if Fano, for some reason, is not there, they could always use more of the same, as you talked about with some of their speed on defense. You mentioned Owe, who ran about 4.4 at the combines. And then you got now I think it's time now for the Kings time with the 25-year-old Akeem Mesidor. I think would be a great fit for the Chargers and a win now mode. Not, I guess now, it's too much mentioning that he's 25 and doing a number of other things, how long he's going to be in the league. Let's get this guy in there and let's see what he has. Then, of course, if there's a shot at wideout, there's also Denzel Boston. I think this might be another good way for him to find out, where he fits and with the right quarterback. And then later bringing up the rear would be Omar Cooper. So that's what I have pretty much for the LA Superchargers.
The Superchargers. What do you have, G?
Debt. So yeah, looking at free agency, they really seem to go after that the offensive line. So I think they did good there. They went and did some edge and defensive line, it looks like. So I'm thinking they're going to really focus on the quarterback, the cornerback and safety. So really the defensive back end is probably where they need to go. And the thing is they got a lot of good players in this draft to choose from at that QB and safety position. So I'm thinking that's where they'll probably go in the draft.
Yeah, I'm with you, G. I have them picking cornerback as well with their 22nd pick. I have them either going Brandon Cisse from South Carolina, or Chris Johnson from San Diego State, who's flying up the charts as well. And just with that second pick, trying to get their wide receiver. At that spot, I'm thinking they could – I'm a Chris Bell guy. Certainly he's coming off that bad ACL, so we don't know where he's going to be. Not the fastest of the wide receivers, but I like his size, and he has quickness. He can, give you a lot of yak, and he can take off fast. So I think that kind of makes up for what he might be lacking a little bit in breakaway speed. But I also like Chris Brazzell. So I'm thinking
that's my top wide receiver right there.
Yeah, so I'm thinking Brazzell, Bell, Omar Cooper. Brazzell's obviously my choice because of everything: size, speed, hands, everything. If he's available. But definitely I would go cornerback with that first pick. And again, I just think this is a make or break year for Harbaugh. Their roster's pretty talented. So again, I don't even think they could really go wrong with their first two picks. And then, they don't have high picks, but I think whoever they pick will be able to help that team. So, all right. Well, that is it for our draft analysis of all these divisions. Our next few episodes, we are going to focus on breaking down the top 5 prospects in our opinions at each position. A lot of it we're on the same page about, but we do have some differences. So that'll be our next few shows leading up to the draft, and then we'll wrap up right before the draft, presenting you all with some sleeper picks that we're going to nail because we're football experts. The people that you listen to, they don't know what they're talking about. We know. So follow us on Chasing Rings. Again, listen to us, watch us on all your favorite streaming platforms. And until next time, see you later.